Ready?
Ready.
So first of all, I want to thank you for volunteering for coaching. Not always do people volunteer for coaching, right? But you genuinely have a desire to be coached, to get better, and to perfect your craft all the time. And I walked into my office today and I got my another Lead from the Heart award, which was very exciting. And I read it and it was so meaningful. And you're just a reminder of when people say as a leader, you have to hire people who have the strengths where you have the deficits. And that is one of my areas. And it's not that I don't care about people. Of course, you know that I do. I just
Yeah.
get busy that I just don't make the time to stop and write the letters, do the celebrations like as I should. And so you just every time you do it, every week that you do it, a reminder to me when you do it for others, it's a reminder to me to do it. To Kiana, you gotta stop. You gotta pause. You gotta celebrate.
Yeah.
Um, People who are out there doing the work. And so I'm just so thankful to have you on our team. Because you do celebrate others. And a lot of times people do forget about the leader. And I think about your position being one of those middle positions that is often forgot about because you're not on a campus, you're not part of a team. And then our team is small, and then it's everybody's always moving and got their.
Right.
I know that that's not easy to do. So, thank you for paying attention to who I am as a leader, meaning when I need it,
Yeah.
lifting the load because my love language is actually acts of service
Yeah.
and just making things quicker, easier, coming up with ideas that really is a help to me, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I love doing stuff like that. And I'm glad you got that today. I was hoping you would get it before the weekend.
Yeah. So talk to me about, is that just naturally just who you are as a person? Is that something that you've had to learn in leadership? How has it impacted your relationships with growing people? What impact has that made
Yeah.
on your leadership?
Um, so I think that that is something that has come naturally for me as a teacher, as a coach, as a leader, but it comes naturally now. I would say whenever I first started my career, I had to be very mindful and intentional about doing it. Um, but I think it comes from a place that I think it comes from a place of like a reminder of what I don't want to happen, especially in this profession, is like things that I've experienced. Like, is anyone paying attention to me? Does anybody know that I am putting all this effort in? Not that I have learned to not fall on the sword over if I get recognition or not in my career, but I know that it's important. And I know that people serve in different ways. And so I feel that that's just one of the ways that I've served is like hunting the good stuff and being intentional about noticing that and bringing that to light.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of a book that I read once to say, find the good.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like find the good. It was a person who wrote obituaries for the city. It was a little small town. And
That's where I got that phrase, hunt the good stuff.
you read that book?
Yes. It's hunt the good stuff. That's where I got that phrase.
Well, the book that I read was called, is it called Hunt the Good? And it was about the obituary writing in the
Yes.
town.
Yeah.
Okay, that is so, because that's an odd little book to find
As soon
somebody
as
that actually
somebody
read that
gave
book.
that to me, somebody
Yeah,
gave that to me
yeah,
and they said, I think you would like this.
yeah.
And
That's
I was
so funny that
like,
I read
okay.
that book, but that's something that I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's good. Okay, so today I would like to narrow our focus to the coaching conversation that you did with Carly Berry.
Okay.
And so, I just have some quick probing questions for you to make sure that I'm landing in the right place and that I have a good understanding of
Okay.
what is taking place and how you landed where you landed.
Okay.
So talk to me about how did you come to that coaching action step?
Okay. So I came to the coaching action step because um we had done collaboration walks together, and I also every week look at Carly's feedback for like her spot observations, and I am reading her feedback in Schoolmint, and I noticed that often there was a lack of specificity, or it was too um, focused on like the logistics of what was happening and not focused on the feedback to the educator. So I wanted to give her a way and a system to have something that would sort of anchor her in knowing what to look for or focus on whenever she went into the classroom.
Mm-hmm. So is it a particular person or team that she supports a lot?
So, for her, she is sixth grade, and so she's all contents. And I notice a significant difference in her feedback, for example, to like an RLA teacher versus a math teacher, because math is her content that she's comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's she is heavily involved in coaching one specific RLA teacher on that campus, um, and has been really involved with weekly coaching cycles and observations and follow-ups.
Okay, so a question that I have for you is ultimately, not logistically, but conceptually, what do you want her to know and be able to do as a leader?
I want her to know and recognize what would make a teacher's instruction more effective, um, and be able to recognize that through her observations. And then I would want her to be able to show the teacher that as an action step in a way that is bite-sized and actionable for them.
Okay, so in hindsight, like after reflecting over your coaching to her, um, thinking about what you want for her conceptually,
Mhm.
could you think of another way you can help her see the conceptual misunderstanding that she has, not the logistical, procedural
Mm,
understanding that she has?
yeah,
Do you need a little time to think about that?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I
So
have
just
like just like 2 minutes maybe?
yeah, take 2 minutes to just think about the things that you wanted her to know conceptually
Okay.
and as a leader.
Okay.
And how could you use what you just told me to help her to understand conceptually?
Okay. I think I'm ready.
Okay. So talk to me about your thoughts.
Okay, I hope I'm on the right track. So at a conceptual level, I would want her to understand that she needs to anchor her feedback in evidence, like using specific moments from the lesson, student actions, things like that, and to avoid those like vague generalizations. Um, because I think teachers need to see what you saw, if that makes sense, because they're not able to observe that in that moment. And then I would also want her to focus on one high leverage area. Like don't overwhelm the teacher, and to identify that if that improved, it would make, the most impact on students. And then I would want her to know like feedback should be actionable, but like with practice. So they need to know how to implement it. So modeling it, co-teaching, co-planning, um, scheduling follow-up observations to support.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think lastly, like always connecting it to student learning. So always making sure that link is there to see the why
Mm-hmm.
with
So
like,
you named a lot of things.
okay,
So if you had to narrow your focus a little bit as
okay,
to area in which that you think is like will have the most impact, or
okay,
to start out with first, if
okay.
you had to chunk it, because that's big for her. So if you
Yeah,
had to chunk some of the concerns and areas that you had, where would you start first?
I think I would start with her. I think I would start on um focus on one high leverage area.
Okay. So as a leader, what could the model be for her to focus on one high leverage area? What could you do with her to make sure that she's seeing the right things and that she's focused on one high leverage area?
So I think that we could do it one or two ways. I think that I could show a video, and then in that way I would have a little more control over the sense that I would know what she should be seeing. Um, because I mean, two, we could go on collaborative walks, but then that's a little tricky because I, as a leader, don't necessarily know what to plan for and what we might see.
Mhm. But what you do know is that she doesn't give targeted feedback.
Yes,
So
that's true.
regardless of what you
That's
see,
true.
the essence of what you think she should be working on is being specific with her feedback.
That's true.
That's one of the things that you said you want her to do. And in order
Yeah.
to do that, first you got to land on the high leverage. So whether you knew it ahead of time or not, she got to land on the high leverage. And then after that, she got a feedback issue.
Yep.
So you're pretty good on your feet that even if you went in the classroom with her, you'll be able to hit that goal.
Okay.
But I also agree with the controlled video environment. That's always a win because you know what's going to happen. But I do want you to know, because I want you to have that confidence that you also are prepared to do it, to pivot, if to do it in real time too. Because this could be in addition to what you're already doing with her while you're calibrating with her.
Yep.
So it's not like another thing, like while you're already over there, y'all walking,
Yeah, and we do that all
head,
the time. So I
right?
think that would be natural, and that wouldn't be that's something that we constantly do. Yeah.
Right. And then if you do it in a natural environment, you're helping her to craft a real life action step that's actionable, that she doesn't have to model after something you saw in a video, but it's something that she could practice and then go right into a coaching session with somebody
Yeah.
she already coaches.
Yep.
So I actually think doing
I
it
think that's
in real
better.
time is even more effective because we don't have time to waste and it's quicker and you got something that she could use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I'm glad we talked that out because at first I was thinking about like my prep as a leader, but then I would want somebody to do it in my own environment too. So that makes sense.
So that's an example of what job embedded PD is.
Mm,
They job embedded sometimes because we're practicing like the rehearsals and all of that. And that's cool too. But job embedded means we're right here side by side in the work. And as we do the work, we're
yeah,
we're doing it together and we're getting some real time feedback and we're pausing and we debriefing on the work that we're already doing
right,
in real time.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple more things that I do want to ask you is beyond just observation and feedback,
Hmm.
what other essential understandings do you think she needs to master related to specificity? Is this just showing up in observation and feedback, or does this show up in other ways?
Hmm. I would say that I would say that it is also like I would say it's showing up in both like spot observation feedback and also in her action coaching scripts.
Mm-hmm.
Um I now I've actually never thought about it holistically now that you say that. I would say the opposite for DDI.
So what would you say in DDI?
So what I see in DDI is an abundance of specificity and um I do see her tie everything to the evidence and the student learning, and I do hear her always bring the teachers back to anchor them in that. So, but I also know that she absolutely she loves data. That's one of her favorite part is analyzing. She's very like math, and so she loves to analyze patterns and trends and see what that looks like come to life and things like that. So, um. I do think that confidence giving feedback to content areas outside of her comfort zone is part of the scenario. I really do.
So,
Um,
this is interesting that you say this because also in DDI, there's a protocol. It's a real
mhm.
specific protocol, so she knows where to go. And that probably helps with her
Yeah,
confidence. Yes, in
yeah,
addition to her loving data, that makes her feel comfortable, but also it's a protocol to rely on. All you got to do is
yeah,
run the play. But
right.
the same thing is true for spot observation and coaching scripts. We got a protocol. If she would lean
Yeah.
in on the protocol and if she has some exemplars or some examples, then that can help
hmm
build her confidence in that area.
And what you just said, was the exact action step that I just gave her when we gave feedback on their videos was on her exemplar.
Mhm. The reason why I asked you that question, or can you think of the reason why I asked you that question around what other ways have you seen that, like, that those understandings show up,
Um, yeah,
across,
like to see more than like the patterns and trends more than just outside of that one
right?
part of yeah.
So my action step for you is to make sure that you're going global.
Okay.
So go global, meaning it's not about this one instance or a couple of times you've seen this leadership skill in this one area. Most of the time, it is a leadership skill that you'll see in other places too. So what
Okay.
she has to learn as a leader is about the intentionality, the specificity, like the rationale for like why the things exist, why we do the things. It's not about necessarily that we've reviewed these things ahead of time, but it's about us knowing who it is that we're coaching to be
hmm
clear on where we want to go so that we can get there faster. And so that we're following back up to celebrate those small wins for progress and that we're going back and having that support and accountability when things aren't happening and moving as they should. Because our goal is to move teachers' proficiency so that they can impact student outcomes.
Right.
And so part of that work too is that she doesn't work on an island on her own. And although that leadership team meetings may not be set up in a way that they could be, she will also at times need to collaborate with whoever that teacher's evaluator is
hmm
because they're evaluating and you have to make sure are we on the same action step with her if
Yeah.
we're proficiency because we could be at odds with each other. So
Right.
you did mention her reviewing that type of data, but I'm not sure it was punched
Right.
her to really understand the why, not just the doing of the things, but why we must do it so that we're accurate, so that we're consistent, we're concise, the
Yeah.
teacher knows exactly where they are and where
Yeah.
they're going next. And
And
that's
that
very, very
lessens
important.
teacher frustration
Right,
because
right,
they are not hearing two different things from the people who are both growing them. Yeah.
right, right. But first she has to get herself in order.
Right.
And then she has to see, okay, now can I articulate well to
Yeah.
another leader what I'm seeing? Are you seeing the same things?
Yeah.
My plan for this person, are we on the
Right.
same page? And so your action step is like to go global.
Okay.
You want to focus on how leadership skills are across the
Okay.
role. Like how do they
Okay.
show up across the role on the most important parts, like PLCs or um, like the observation feedback, or like you picked out some of like in the spot observations and like how you show it across where it's not just in this one area.
Right.
And so then you
Okay.
want to push for the conceptual understandings, like those patterns and trends and
Mm-hmm.
those thinking skills or those leadership skills that you have to have,
Yeah.
they transcend across. And so you want to stamp that transferable thinking,
Okay.
and that's going to have that why, like why we do what we do.
Yeah.
So if you can say to me, like, so
Okay.
what was the gap between your action step for her, your original action step for her, versus if you had to revise this and had to have a new action step, what is the difference or what is the gap between your approach now?
Yeah. So my original action step, for her was more like logistical and giving her like a protocol and a system to follow for getting set up. But I think if I were to revise it, it would be to like the word that you used and go more conceptual to understand the the why behind like our purpose of feedback and what it is supposed to grow, which is student mastery, and tie it back to that. So I think that I would definitely um, try to be less, I don't know, um, like steps and more understanding of like the feedback process.
Hmm. So what was your action step that I gave you?
So my action step was to go global. Like think about it's not about one instance, but all areas. Um, like focus on their leadership skills across their role.
Mhm.
And then collaborate like with other leaders and stamp their transferable thinking to understand the why.
Mhm. So, okay, so let's plan for that practice,
Okay.
right? Because that's going to change first of all, you have to be prepared. So, what we're working on now is you as a leader perfecting your plan.
Yeah.
It's not even about the person you coached right now. We're just using her as a
Okay.
way to get to where we need to, right? So,
Yeah.
think about your plan.
Okay.
Think about thinking about her. You can think about her, but you're really perfecting your plan.
Okay.
So going back to think about that, I want you to literally revise the see it, the model that you'll use, like write out, start back over and revise the see it section of your coaching conversation, not the see the success, but
Yeah.
starting with the see the model. And then
Okay.
so we can really flesh it out so she can see the gap. And for the sake of time, I know you don't have time to go in to have the actual different evidence of the different data, but you can just
Hmm.
name the different data that you would have reviewed because you ultimately got to show her that it's a problem. Because you just showing up in a room without previewing things doesn't mean that she's not going to land on the highest leverage action step,
Right.
right? But it doesn't mean that it's going to happen by design.
Right.
It means it might happen by default, but oftentimes it might not. But a person who is not giving specific feedback is not likely to land where they need to land
Yes.
on their feet, right?
Yes. Yes.
She's too novice for that.
Right.
So just take some time
Okay.
to just think about revising that section and how you could be clear with that part so that we could do the see it, redo the see it, and then we're going to practice that part.
Okay.
Okay. How much time do you think you need? Or you just take the time that you need and whenever you're ready, let me know you're ready.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Okay. How's it going? Do you need any feedback or anything like right now?
Going pretty well. I think I'm struggling a little bit with um what my ex I guess maybe what my exemplar might be.
Okay.
Um
You Do you mind if I share an idea that
yeah,
I thought of? And one
yeah,
of the reasons I didn't just come with an exact one is because I didn't know exactly where you were and how you
right.
came to that understanding. And so
Yeah,
you actually had looked at some variety of things from her, so you knew what
yeah,
it was, but you were indirectly hitting the real issue. You weren't
yeah,
punching the
yeah.
real issue with her.
So I guess
You know what I mean?
yeah, but I think because I was thinking about, well, I could give her like an exemplar feedback, but I've done that before.
So what you could do, let's talk about that. Let's
But through
lean
PD, not a coaching cycle conversation. So that may be different in a whole
right.
group. So I might could bring that back.
So talk to me about what you have so far.
Okay, so basically I for the see the model part, I changed my focus to like focusing on the approach of giving feedback like post observation.
Mhm.
Um and so I just said sort of like before we dive into a model, like I want you to reflect on your current like feedback authoring process. Like what do you focus on? What kind of notes do you use? Like what evidence do you include? So I'd sort of gotten there, and then whenever I was coming down to look at like an example, I thought, oh, like would I share and model my thinking about what I do when I write feedback, or would I give exemplar feedback? Because
Mhm.
I kind of wonder if she doesn't understand like the thought process behind
Mhm.
using your evidence that you wrote down in the class
Mhm.
to anchor that in an action step.
Okay, I think you're on to something. So let's just pause there.
Okay.
I definitely think it's something you can use. I would
Okay.
first start because when we're working with adult learners, they have to know, like, they have to have some relevance to why they need to do the thing that you're asking them to do. Some people just do it because you're asking them to do it, and some of them need to know, like, okay, this is just a different way. Why am I doing it? So I
Yeah.
would start out to create that bucket or that curiosity by showing her, well, having her name what that teacher's problem of practice is. Like if you had to say where this
Okay.
teacher action step is, where is it? You know, like from the tiering or all of that
Okay.
they've done. So
Okay.
have the teacher have that action step listed and then say, okay, well, I've gone through, or here's some examples, or let's look up, here's some examples of some feedback that's been given to the teacher. If this is this teacher's problem of practice, literally put some of the feedback that's been given. This observation had this spot observation had this. Um, the AP or the principal said this in this area.
Hmm.
Uh, the PD that was delivered said this. And what do you think? Looking at these things, take a couple of minutes to look at these things with the feedback that was provided or the skill building that was provided with that fix that teacher's problem of practice.
Yes.
And so they think she
Yeah.
thinks it's like actually no, because this one is talking about management. This one is talking about internalizing. This one
Right.
is talking about it's not a lot. It's all over the place,
Just
right?
yeah. Yeah.
So she's seeing a big picture of number one, globally, we got to be intentional all together of what we do to to support teachers. We got to
Yeah.
be intentional with the problem of practice and whatever feedback that we give, it must be aligned, right?
Right.
Okay, so then you go into the doing, like, so once you see that, I got a reason to pay attention to
Right.
this work,
Right.
now let's go walk together. And now let's land on a high leverage, or let's look at a video, or we don't have to do that. Let's just name, based on that teacher's problem of practice that we see, let's make this a sample piece of this feedback better. So we can
Yeah.
start with something that she's already given and
Yep.
revise that piece, or it
Yep.
could be crafting a whole new piece of feedback because what she gave
Okay.
could be completely off. But you
Yeah.
want to
Right.
practice the art of actually writing and crafting that feedback. And then once
Okay.
she does that, then y'all could practice on her delivering that feedback to the teacher and then reflect on why is that so important so she can transfer that learning or that thinking or that
Yeah.
leadership. So that
Yeah.
could be a way to do that model piece.
Okay.
Because
So
adult learners
I
have
know,
to see
yeah,
that what
I
they're
know
doing
that
is not impacting instruction.
I know that I want to craft that feedback with her. Um,
Yes.
so so in my mind I was thinking that her action step, I was focused on like her landing on the highest leverage action step. So, would one of the like pieces of success criteria involve something with like, you know, um, like crafting feedback with specific evidence that supports the action step?
Well, my question is first, when you walked with her and based on your previous experiences with her, is she landing on the highest leverage action step?
No, she's often too high.
So if she's not even landing on the highest leverage action step, I wouldn't even worry about the quality of the feedback because this is too big at this point.
Got you. Got
So
you.
that would be something I would go to second. So first, I would just make sure she's landing on the highest leverage action step
Okay.
because you can also see that because you still can see that the feedback is all over the place, right? You still can have
Right.
an entry point. The feedback is all over the place for this person. And is this really her action step? Do we need to adjust her action step? And then your work with her would be making sure that she's laying on the highest leverage action step. But then how do you help to prepare her with the evidence to go back and even broadly like communicate that back with her team, with her AP, with her principals, like because it's a system issue too
Yeah.
that she's
Yeah.
in part of. But all
Yeah.
we can control is principle the things we're
I know.
over. So
Yeah.
she can get the things that she can't control, but she can also share that learning with a broader team. Because if she's working on with a teacher with something and an AP comes in and says something totally different, that's anticipating a barrier so she could because that's gonna cause another issue. So she's
Right.
already anticipating, I'm not just working with this teacher on my own, so I need to share with a broader team of support. This is what I'm working on with this teacher. This is what I see. And she has to be in alignment with the evaluator.
Right. 100%. Okay.
Is that helpful?
That's very helpful. I had gotten, like, I sort of listed my probing questions, but I'd gotten to the exemplar piece and I wasn't sure the best way to kind of make that land. So I really like your example of, like, this is the action step, and then here's the feedback that has been given. So,
Mhm,
like, does it align? If it
mhm.
doesn't align, to see what her thinking is on that.
Okay, so rewrite that,
Okay.
revise that with those upgrades.
Okay. Okay.
So a leadership move that I would have done differently, considering that it's virtual, I would have had you type in your example, so that I could
Well,
see your
yeah.
changes in real time. But I know you're a writer and you like to write, and that's completely okay to problem
Okay.
solve. And so we probably, with that in mind, it could have been like if we were face to face, I could have seen your writing, but I just want a name that I can't really see it right now. But
Yeah.
ideally, I would be seeing it to make sure you capture all. But you can walk me through what you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And this is something that is relevant to like what I just gave feedback on and is a practice that she needs. So like I can practice my action step by giving her this action step in real life.
hmm hmm
Um, so
So walk me
okay.
through what you had, what revisions you've made, and then that'll be
Okay.
our follow-up that we confirm a time or a re-recording of you following up with her.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so I have today I'd like to focus on your whoop, hang on, I'm sorry. I marked out a little too much. Okay. So I have today, I'd like to focus on your approach to giving feedback after an observation. Before we look at or before we dive into the model, I'd love for you to reflect on your current feedback focus. And so I have my probing questions are, um, what evidence do you include whenever you currently give feedback? And then I have what supports help you, or how do you land on the highest leverage action step for the teacher? And then the last one um, is your feedback bite-sized and actionable? I changed
Mm-hmm.
I changed my questions based on where I know her gap is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then so I have, let's pick a teacher that you're actively coaching. Name the action step that they're currently practicing. And then, okay, as you review it, let's look at the spot observation feedback that they have been given. Take 2 minutes to read the feedback given and their action step. Write down any alignment, similarities, or differences between the feedback given and their action step. And then I would give her a few minutes to like notate those and ask her what she noticed, which would lead to like, what is the gap between the feedback given to this teacher and the action step that has been given to practice?
Okay, let's pause there. Can
Okay.
I get some feedback?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily just the feedback after an observation, post observation. It's just
Okay.
her feedback period. Remember, she has a
Yeah.
feedback issue.
Yeah. I don't like that part of I want to refine that.
Yeah. And then on top of that, yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
Oh, also, I want to make sure I would not give her a choice as the teacher. I would give her a teacher
Oh,
that's not moving
so I
student
could
outcomes,
already have it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I already have it because we want to be data informed when we make decisions too, because also what happens, people are random. And she needs to understand we're intentional in everything. We got teachers not growing. And teachers may not be growing because it's our issue.
Well,
We'll
and
get
that's what
random
happened.
and that we're not
Yeah.
being targeted,
That's
right?
what happened is like an action step was given. The teacher is not growing, but it's because the action step is way too high. Like it's inappropriate. So,
Right, right. So just as a way, I do get that teachers and adults are on a continuum,
mm,
but we're loose in a lot of ways. So we can start out tighter and then start to gradually release.
yeah.
Right now, let's look at this teacher. You already have looked at this teacher's data, right? And
Okay.
then look at this teacher's student outcomes because she has to walk away knowing that she has a personal responsibility to these students' outcomes.
Yeah.
And you can say, the reason why I chose this, at the end of it, the reason why I chose this teacher
Yeah.
is because of these outcomes,
Yeah.
right? Right. Okay,
Okay.
so we're going to wrap up that part of the coaching conversation.
Okay.
How do you think the coaching conversation went?
I feel great about it. I think that that's um my action step that you gave me too is also something that I have been, working on transitioning my brain to all year in terms of, thinking about more conceptual overall systems and patterns. Because now that you said that, I'm thinking about who else am I giving this feedback to? And then like, does that need to be like a coaching clinic and like the bigger trends? So that's something that I've definitely been working on, transitioning to this role and not on just this campus this year. And so I'm really glad that I can continue working on that in this way, like through the practice with her specifically.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One thing I'm going to say, because I'm country and I like these little sayings and idioms, like if a husband and a wife or whomever are having an
Yeah.
argument over the trash, it's
Yeah.
not about the trash.
No.
No, it's
Yeah.
never about the trash. So with leadership, sometimes we pick this one thing and think it's that, but it's bigger than that, it's broader than that.
Yeah.
So it's a
Hmm.
bigger thing it may be about intentionality, it may be about alignment, it may be
Hmm.
about transferable skills. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
bigger. So just as a thought, it's not
Yeah.
about the trash. So
Yeah.
anytime we
Like
have a
that.
tend to go to procedural, there's and sometimes it literally is procedural. You have to go
Yeah.
procedural. But
Yeah.
the more you can go to the conceptual piece, it's going to be the piece that's going to transfer. Because
Yeah.
procedural, you can give a protocol for that. But
Right.
conceptual things are things you can't really give a protocol for
Yeah.
necessarily, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like how does she think as a leader and and all kinds of ways, looking at
Right.
all different types of data to move and respond.
Yeah. That
Okay.
makes perfect
So
sense.
when will you be following up with her?
Okay, so I have a planned coaching conversation with her coming up on uh April the 28th. That's whenever I'm following up with her.
April 28th.
Mm-hmm.
So look at your schedule
Mm-hmm.
and what is a good day for you to follow up with me on the progress. And it could be we could follow up. You can follow up in a video or you can however way you want to follow. How do you want to follow up on this?
Um, yeah, I think I could send you my video and we could do it that way. I know that my action step is bigger than just her, but um I think that
We
it would
start with
be
her as the proof point.
we can start with her. Yeah.
Okay, so you sent me the video on the 28th and on the 29th, do you have do you have some time in the morning on the 29th to follow up for us to reflect
Yeah.
and follow up on it?
Yeah, right now I only have a meeting from 10 to 11, but I can move it if I need to, probably.
So let's do 8:30 to 9:30.
Okay.
So I'll send you an invite from 8:30 to 9:30, and it may not
Okay.
take that long, but we'll just follow up on your coaching conversation. I want you to have watched it, reflected, be ready to shine and share what you accomplished.
Okay.
I'm not worried about your rollout of the thing.
Yeah.
You understand to see it, name it, do it model.
Yeah.
Right now we're just refining. And so when you're refining something,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like a traditional like feedback session with the leader because we don't know which way it's gonna go. And
Yeah.
so because it ebbs and flows, kind of like today. But I think we were able to accomplish what we needed to accomplish. But that's just how it goes when you're working on refining.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is it. Do you need anything from me?
No, I do not.
All right. And
I
I
will
will,
probably, well, I say that, but I'll probably have my script created the week before, so next week, and then I may send it to you just to have you make sure that my like action step and success criteria look okay.
yeah.
I'm confident with my see the model part since we talked about it, but I just want to be
The
sure.
rest of it. That's smart.
Okay.
That's smart. I didn't even catch that. So I told you, you helped me. We learn from each other. Would you like for me to come to your office or would you like to come to me face to face or would you like to do another
Um,
so that you have like evidence of the follow-up as an artifact for yourself?
yeah. Can we do that and record it?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
I'll just right now, I'll go ahead now and make a Zoom
Okay.
and send you an invite.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'll download this and I'll add it to our shared document. So not only are we learning from this, other people on our team can.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And I did not necessarily have a script. I guess I had a lot of things printed out though. So I need to try to figure out like I guess explaining. Maybe I need to make a video just explaining how I came to what I decided to
Yeah.
coach you on. I don't
Because I
know.
would be curious. I would even be curious to like hear. I love hearing your thinking. I think like whenever you model your thinking and your reasoning behind things, I learn a lot. So I'd be curious if you have time. I know you're busy.
I am. I'll see. I won't
Okay.
commit, but I'll figure it out.
I know someone's a little jealous.
Okay, she wants coaching. I'm here for it. I'm here
Yes.
for it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
can You can't ever do too much.
No.
Okay,
And
so
we
I'll be reaching out.
okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.